Thank you all for joining us this morning for our presentation workshop on how to create a effective SBIR quad chart as you approach conversations with federal funding agencies. This webinar is put in place in order to support your conversations during SBA's virtual road tour, which starts today in about an hour from now. I just wanted to provide some resources as you do approach those conversations. My name is Melissa Tennick, and I am the program manager for New Mexico FAST, where we support folks as they explore SBIR and STTR opportunities for their small businesses. And I'm also joined by John, if he wants to introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm John. I'm a program specialist working with Arrowhead Center, and I help out in a couple different areas, but a big part of that is helping out with InFast.
Awesome. And so today we are going to be chatting about the quad chart, how to effectively use it, the different quadrants and information to include on those quad charts. But we always like to start off with a quick overview of the SBIR and STTR program so we can kind of set the stage for the conversations we'll be having. So the SBIR program, or the Small Business Innovation Research Program, and the STTR program, or the Small Business Technology Transfer Programs, are really set in place to help small businesses receive non-dilutive funds from the federal government to solve problems that our nation is facing. There are multiple goals for these programs, including to meet federal R&D needs by providing research dollars to small businesses and startups, and then also to increase private sector commercialization of innovations from those research dollars. The programs also look to stimulate technological innovation and then foster and encourage participation in innovation and entrepreneurship by socially and economically disadvantaged persons, startups, and communities. The STTR program, which is a sister program of the SBIR program, also looks to foster technology transfer through cooperative R&D between small businesses and research institutions. To provide a little bit of background on two different programs, and there's many different avenues as you do approach these programs. So if you do have any follow-on questions, please reach out to the NMFAST team, and we can connect you to resources in your state if you're not located in the state of New Mexico. So the Small Business Innovation Research Programs, or the R&D programs, they really look at supporting R&D and financing of innovative technologies. There, small business can approach the program on its own and look for that non-dilutive funding. A federal agency becomes part of the SBIR program, and when their extramural budget is greater than $100 million, and about 3.2% of that research budget is directed towards the SBIR program. STTR programs are STTR programs and sister program of the SBIR program. There, we look for small businesses to partner with a research institution and to develop technologies, innovations that have a potential for commercialization. All agencies that participate in these programs are SBIR agencies. Once their extramural budget exceeds $1 billion, they also become STTR agencies. There's typically about 7,000 new awards each year, and something to keep in mind is that the small business is always going to be the applicant and the awardee, regardless of if they're going the SBIR or the STTR route.
When you're looking at your eligibility as a small business, it's important to keep in mind that you do need to be a small business. And since these programs are funded through federal agencies, they also want that money to stay within the United States. So as you're looking at eligibility, a small business is defined as no more than 500 employees. That's including any affiliate businesses or connected businesses along with your business as applying. You need to be organized for profits. Nonprofit organizations do not qualify for SBIR and STTR funding. At least 50% of the business needs to be owned and controlled within the United States by US citizens or by permanent residents within the US. And all the research work needs to be accomplished within the US, for most agencies at least.
Awesome. And then both these programs are gated programs. So in order to be eligible for a phase 2, you need to have a successful phase 1. In order to transition to phase 3 and look at phase 3 opportunities, you need to have a successful phase 2. Most folks here today are going to be in that phase 0 phase 0 stage right now, where you're actually looking at writing that proposal, connecting with program managers, finding topics that match your innovation. And here there is support organizations such as New Mexico FAST. So the SBA has dedicated FAST sites across the country where we help small businesses and startups navigate the SBIR and STTR programs. Here we have micro grants. For example, if you are looking for grant writers and things like that, we can support you through that. And every FAST site looks a little bit different, but they are really created to support folks during that phase 0 stage as they develop a competitive proposal and really kind of set the stage for their phase 1 and phase 2 opportunities. Phase 1 is focused on feasibility testing or testing your concept or developing that concept. For phase 1, there's typically a proposal package that includes multiple written pages for that proposal, and with periods of performances ranging from 6 to 12 months and award ceilings from $75,000 up to closer to $300,000. It is a highly competitive program with about a 15% success rate on your submissions. Typically, folks will not get accepted their first time round, so we usually recommend, utilize resources that are available in phase 0 and then use those to create a more competitive proposal package for your phase 1 efforts. But also keep in mind, don't get too discouraged. Usually folks are going to apply more than one time, and then after about 2 or 3 submissions, they'll have a successful phase 1. After that phase 1, you'll be working on the unfeasibility testing. Typically, at some point during your period of performance, you would be eligible to apply for phase 2. Phase 2 is prototype development. And there, the period of performance increases to about 24 months. It looks a little bit different between agencies, but typically 24 months is an average. I always say that the SBIR and STTR programs, there's a lot of nuances as you explore opportunities. So again, as you are exploring these opportunities, you're not alone. Reach out to your FAST sites, and we're more than happy to support you as you navigate opportunities. Award ceilings for phase 2 increased greatly, ranging from about $500,000 to about $1.8 million. Again, there are nuances and additional funding that you can ask for different agencies. That's just a general rule of thumb. And for the rates, the success rates, it increases slightly since folks that have had a successful phase 1, they are the ones that are eligible to apply for phase 2. So there's about a 50% success rate on phase 2 submissions. It ranges between agencies, so kind of just keep that in mind as well. We always recommend, as you are in your phase 1, connecting with your contracting officers or your grant managers to make sure that you are, delivering on what you promised, that your milestones are what they're expecting in order to increase that success rate. Some agencies, they have additional phase 2 funding. You kind of think about, the life cycle of a project or a program. Some may require a duration longer than 24 months. So depending on the agency, there may be additional phase 2 funding. And again, as you explore those nuances, reach out to your FAST sites and those agency program managers for assistance. And phase 3 is commercial sales or commercialization. This really is the heart of the SBIR and STTR programs. Phase 1 and phase 2 funding are in place in order to help folks actually commercialize those products that they're developing through this pipeline. There is no direct SBIR funds for phase 3, and there is limited direct funding from different agencies. There are programs and money in place for phase 1 and phase 2 to kind of get folks ready for commercialization when they get there. But it's really up to the small business and the startup to find that customer or end user as they're approaching phase 3. So why should somebody be interested in SBIR or STTR? It provides equity-free investment in your company. It allows you to demonstrate the feasibility of your idea. As a startup, how often do you have, a few $100,000 laying around to test the feasibility of an idea that could potentially be a game changer? That's what SBIR and STTR really is there for and looks to support small businesses through. It also allows you to start building a team and building your company for success. So you don't have to have folks hired on right now as you're in the proposal writing phase. Those folks do have to be hired on for that period of performance. So typically, I coach folks through, their initial proposal writing. I always ask, what is that dream team that's going to help you commercialize this game-changing technology or innovation? You can help provide due diligence for follow-on funding. It also allows you to map your product and value proposition to your intended customer. Depending on if you are going after a granting or contracting agency, that customer profile or end user profile will look a little bit different. Contracting agencies, those agencies are typically looking to acquire or integrate your technologies into their efforts. If you're going after a granting agency, you from phase one are able to start really describing what that end application or end customer is going to look like, and can focus your commercialization efforts in that direction. It also reduces, and kind of like I already mentioned, it reduces the need to self-fund R&D, which is really expensive, and many times a small business does not have the funds laying around to complete that. There are IP and data rights in place to protect you as you go through the SBIR and STTR process, and as you're developing new ideas and actually going through that feasibility testing. And then the SBIR and STTR can position you for sole source government contracts, especially if you're kind of going after a contracting agency. So there's 11 agencies that participate in the SBIR program. All of the ones that are presented up here are SBIR agencies, but as I mentioned before, once an agency exceeds $1 billion in extramural allocated R&D money, they become an STTR agency as well. So the agencies up here that are in gray are STTR agencies, but they also do have SBIR opportunities. Once the agencies in the maroon color become, exceed that extramural budget, they can also become STTR agencies. A great example of this transition is with the USDA, or the United States Department of Agriculture. They were an SBIR agency for a very long time. Their extramural budget exceeded $1 billion, and they transitioned over to an STTR and an SBIR agency in recent years. And all of these agencies, they have many different opportunities. So typically when folks approach us, they'll have, we ask about the application of their technology. And based on that conversation, we can really look at what are these agencies focusing on, and then matching them to agency opportunities. There is kind of the catch-all and NSF, the National Science Foundation, where they focus on all things scientific and engineering, minus any sort of drug discovery or clinical trials. But if you are really looking at running clinical trials, that doesn't mean your R&D stops there. There's other agencies like NIH or HHS that do allow those clinical trials. So typically when you do have an innovation, you do approach FastSight, we'll have a conversation with you of how would you like to apply your technology, and then what additional R&D funding what other additional R&D needs to be completed before you're ready for commercialization. Based on that, we'll chat with you about different agencies and how you can leverage multiple opportunities to move your technology forward. So that was a very general introduction to the SBIR and STTR program. We do have a bunch of SBIR 101 webinars on our website, which you can access after this webinar, this presentation, covering the programs and the agencies a little bit more in depth. Today, we're going to be chatting about the quad chart, and we're going to start off with the purpose of it.
So we'll dig into the quad chart a little bit here, getting started. You might have guessed from the name that there are 4 parts to it. So it's a 4-quadrant handout that speaks toward the business and the innovation that you want to present. It is kind of like an elevator pitch on paper. The idea is to get your audience interested, and you want them to want to know more. And in doing so, you're going to provide a little bit of background information on the idea that you're presenting, a little bit about the company that you have, a little bit about what drives you as the mission for the business. I mean, it really should just be a quick overview that's just enough to get them excited. And there are a couple of agencies that do require this, and others it's just a good idea to have it, and in case you wanted to start any conversations. Agencies that do require it are the DoD, if you wanted to talk to a technical point of contact, and the DHS. And DHS uses it to introduce your idea, introduce your business to a panel of reviewers.
And in addition to using these quad charts to talk to federal program managers, they are really good at kind of leading the conversations you're looking for partners. So if, for example, you're interested in STTR, you may need to bring on folks, get them interested in what you are creating. So it really serves as this one-page brief that really talks about the state of the project and why stakeholders or partners or additional team members should be interested. It allows you to highlight where you need assistance, and then you can identify how they can provide that assistance. We typically recommend, creating multiple quad charts. You'll have some quad charts for when you're talking to the federal agencies. You can have quad charts for when you're actually approaching, let's say, Department of Energy labs, when you're approaching different research institutions. So these quad charts can really be used in multiple different ways, but they're a really good way to provide a concise map of how you're going to take your R&D to the next level. And for the quad chart, it helps train folks to kind of be concise and brief with needs and how they describe their project and their R&D. So the quad charts, they don't allow a lot of room for a lot of text. It really looks for folks to be concise and really identify the pain points and then the opportunities that your technology or your innovation are going to provide. It also allows for kind of a visual representation of what you'll be creating. So you don't have a lot of room for text. So you want to really be intentional with the information that you're providing. So within the quad chart, not only can you provide text, you can also provide images and graphics to really lead folks to visualizing what the next steps in your R&D process are. Awesome. And at the end of this webinar, we'll briefly chat about effective uses of quad charts, but the best way to really use them is as you're setting up meetings with agency representatives, especially within the FBA or within the SBIR and STTR programs. You set up a meeting with this agency representative and you send that quad chart over to them at least 3 days beforehand. And the quad chart has some sort of indication of what topic or topic area you're hoping to discuss. They should be able to kind of look at that quad chart and be able to pinpoint what direction you're going after, what topic are you going to be exploring. And then don't read that quad chart during your call or during your meeting. You really want it to be a guide. You want it to provide the agency representatives with some information, but those meetings really should be focused on you getting information from those agency representatives to make sure that you are aligning with their efforts, their initiatives, and what they're envisioning to fund within certain topics. Awesome. And now we're going to talk briefly about the different parts of the quad chart.
So here's our first example of a quad chart, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. So across the top, you always want to have your information as a little bit of a header up there. What is your company name? What is the state, physical location that you're located in? The name of the person who's going to be the main contact for your business, your email, and your phone. And so with that email, if you have a website set up for your business, if you have email that's attached to that website, that makes your company look a lot more professional. And it's nice to use that, and it's definitely good to make your business look more professional, but it's far more important to have an email there that's actually used, that you look at every day. So use information up there that you will check regularly. As we go through the 4 sections of the quad chart, you see that you start out with the technology development. You're going to tell them a little bit about the innovation that you have and where you're at. As you go across, we have the company introduction. Tell them a little bit about the company. This is also going to show them that you fit in the small business eligibility framework. Coming down at the bottom, you have your research need. We have another example later on that shows a little bit of flexibility here. But this is an area that could change a lot depending on who you're talking to and what your needs are and why you're coming to them. And our last section here is the opportunity. So what niche are you filling? What customers are you going for? What is your market opportunity? How much of that market are you trying to take hold of? And then let's break all of these down. So next slide. That very first section, the technology development, this is where you really get to highlight what you have come up with. This is where you get to show off your innovation, but you do have to do it very briefly. And you have to think about your audience. So you and your team have been working on this very diligently, and you are the experts in your innovation. But you're talking to somebody who may not be an expert. They'll very likely have a strong understanding of the concepts that you're talking about, but you have to make sure that you're not putting in a bunch of jargon, a bunch of very specific terminology where they may get lost. What makes your innovation different? Can you include any information, maybe just briefly state something that you found in the literature, or maybe an idea that you found in the literature? Maybe you can mention that you've done a little bit of modeling to show that it is a feasible concept. As you're going through, what types of intellectual property protections do you have? Do you have any patents already? Are you planning on getting any? You don't have to have patents in your quad chart when you're coming to these agencies at the very beginning, but at least let them know that you have an idea of what will happen with the intellectual property as it's being created. And let them know how far along your technology is. In our example, it says just basic research as far as the stage of development, but that's very vague. It doesn't give a whole lot of information. What's a lot easier for the agencies and a lot more specific for them is to use this TRL chart that you see here. And I pulled this off of the NASA website. It's pretty easy to find. And it's relatively easy to line up your technology with one of these levels. And if you can tell them that you're at a TRL4 or a TRL2, something like that, that provides a lot more information for them as to how far your innovation has actually come to this point. Next slide. And then we'll talk about the business a little bit. So you get to highlight the company. What is your mission? What are you striving for? Again, be brief, but let them know what really motivates you and the people that you work with. This is also a chance to let them know when your company was established. How many employees do you have? Are you big? Are you close to the 500 employee limit? Or are you very small? Maybe you just have 3 people working on this, but you're the best 3 people to be working on it, you know? Do you have any successes thus far? Now that could look like many different things. And in our example, we have product sales. And you don't have to have any sales when you're coming to these agencies, at least not yet. SBIR and STTR is all about funding innovation, funding new ideas, but they want to see that you are actually capable of pulling off the creation of whatever your innovation is. You're capable of truly bringing this idea to market, and this is your chance to show them that you can do it.
Awesome. And then kind of talking about that research need, and the research need will play a little bit off of the information that you talk about in your technology development. But here is where you cover the activities that you need to conduct. It's not going to be a work plan. You really shouldn't include paragraphs and paragraphs of what you're going to do. Kind of as a rule of thumb, whenever you're writing something, stay at about 11 to 12 point font. You really don't want to go smaller than that. And if you are going smaller than that to include all of the information that you'd like to include there, that is too much. Don't throw that information away. Keep that information on another document, and then leverage that as you are having conversations with these federal agencies. But provide a simple overview of what needs to happen in order to move forward on those TRL levels. Reference what you've talked about in the technology development area and say, okay, we need to move, we need to create this piece. We need to develop this piece a little bit more. We need to explore this market in order to move further up that TRL pathway. Here, you also want to give some clues as to why the research need is important. What will it do to define your innovation to make it actually a feasible product? So, if you are proposing kind of feasibility testing and for phase one, leverage what information is out there, but then also how it will connect to your innovation, to your technology, and how it will move pieces forward. If you have early data or working schematics, this is a great place to include an image. Images are a lot more powerful than text sometimes. You don't want to just include images. You want to have a little combination of both. You don't want to just explain something and it's just vaporware. If it is a little bit more of a abstract topic, or a little bit more complex, include images. You can even include, step-by-step images of, we're going to complete these, we have these milestones to complete. It looks a little bit different for everyone. So we don't like saying, this is exactly what you need to include in your research needs section, but just kind of keep in mind that this section does look different for every opportunity. So this will look different if you are approaching federal agencies. It'll look different if you're approaching research institution or national labs. And just kind of be ready to, most of the other pieces can kind of stay similar, but this section is really going to be that dynamic one. And whatever, if you do include any images, or make sure that it's connected to the text. You don't want to just throw in an image and not explain how it connects to the rest of the story that you'll be telling. And really, for these quad charts, think of them as a tool for your storytelling. You don't want to have to, again, read directly off of it. You don't want all of the information on there, but you do want guiding points that will guide that conversation you're having with program managers. And then that final section of the SBIR, of the quad chart, is going to be opportunity. So remember, commercialization is really the focus of these programs. So this quadrant, the opportunity quadrant, will talk about commercialization opportunities and pathways. So you want to cover the benefit of your innovation, of your product, and then you also have to know why someone needs your potential product. So kind of a difference between needed to solve a problem and would like to include it. You want to make sure that this isn't just that your technology or innovation isn't just a commodity, that it is a specific solution to a specific problem that agencies, contracting or granting, are facing, and really use this section to highlight that. I always say, as you're talking about opportunity, look at what the agencies are focusing on. What is their plan for the next 5 to 10 years? Leverage that information and include it in the section as well. And then really align yourself with the direction that they're going into. You also want to highlight your customer or end user in the market. So identify potential customers, but be pretty specific with who they are. For example, if you're going to the medical field, is your customer going to be doctor's offices? Is it going to be insurance agencies? Is it actually going to be the patient? Also distinguish the difference between a customer and an end user. Sometimes there may be that middle person that buys your product, but then delivers it to your end users. How are you going to show that your end users need the technology or innovation that you're developing? In this section, you can also talk about the market, and this is a piece that a lot of folks get really worried about. Kind of keep in mind that as you are talking about market, it is your best guess, but not, just guess without any support. You want to make sure that you're doing some market research, And based on where you're at right now and based on market research, pull that information together and talk about your market opportunity. Agencies know that this changes over time. For example, and there are resources within, phase 1 and phase 2, for example, TABA funding or technical and business assistance funding that kind of help explore that market opportunity. Agencies know that that market opportunity is going to change between your phase 1 and phase 2. Agencies know that pivots occur, and that typically is okay, especially if you're with a granting agency. Those pivots occur, and that market might change based on pivoting. There is also customer discovery opportunities within the SBIR and STTR ecosystem that a lot of folks take advantage of during their phase 1s. And based on those activities and those conversations with potential customers and end users, that market opportunity might change as well. So kind of just keep that in mind as you approach the section, have your best guess, but again, educated guess. So you're including information and providing support, but know that it may change. And something also to keep in mind, especially if you're going after a contracting agency, while contracting agencies can potentially be your customer during phase 3 or during that commercialization piece, you should still be considering and talking about the dual use application of your technology. So not only is there going to be military application, but is there a potential way to translate it to general sales as well? So kind of keep that in mind as you are in this section, and always know that this may change, and this should be changing as you are conducting more market research. And so we'll be sending out this PowerPoint following this webinar, and you'll be able to kind of look at these examples in a little bit more depth and kind of think about them as you're creating your quad charts. But we wanted to take you through an example that our team has created that focuses on a fake technology, a fake company, as you can kind of see the name, Back to the Future fans. So here we'll take you through kind of the different sections really briefly, and you'll be able to see how the sections are filled out for this specific technology.
So as we've talked about a little bit before, here's a brief introduction to the technology. And here he shows that Fusion Industries is developing lightweight power distribution system, which tells what the innovation is, and that is all condensed into one sentence. The second sentence they have here, it shows that models have been run to test the feasibility. Here, they are talking about 2 patents, so one provisional patent and one that's issued utility patent for their intellectual property protection. It's okay, like I said, if you don't have any patents yet, but at least show in this section what you plan to do to protect that IP. The stage of development. Here it says computational models. If you can add a TRL right there next to it, it shows that you've done the models, but gives them a little clearer idea of how far you are in that 1 to 9 scale. And then the value proposition. They're showing here something that they can do that no one else can do. In this case, producing 1 kilowatt of power for sustained duration for 200 hours. Next slide. And then you talk about the company. So they've mentioned here their mission to modernize and revitalize cold fusion research. And that's what's driving them forward, is to better cold fusion research. They show when they were founded, so that gives an idea of how long they've been established, how long they've been around doing this thing, how long have they been working toward this goal. The number of employees, it shows that they're well within that 500 employee max. And it also gives you an idea of the strength of the company that's working toward this innovation. They've described their facility here, which again gives an idea of, is your company capable of following through with the innovation that you have proposed. So here it says, work is currently being performed in a converted lab facility that is outfitted with all necessary equipment and tooling for this innovation. You might want to be a little bit more specific about, what types of equipment you need, just to give them an idea that you do have the equipment. It's not just a broad statement. We have it, I swear. And at this point, there are no sales, and that is okay. Especially if you're coming in at a phase 1 or phase 2, it's not expected that you have sold anything yet. It's great if you have. It's not necessarily expected from you yet.
Awesome. Just a brief little paragraph for that research needs section. Keep in mind that this section is going to look different if you are going after SBIRs or STTRs. And for example, if, in that company introduction, you list you need certain facilities, or you realize that you need certain facilities or resources, you can also include that here in the research need and can use it to connect to different research institutions, partners, national labs to get access to those resources. What will make the section even better would be conversations around how you are looking to increase your TRL level, and also images as well, really showing kind of where you're at and what you're developing. For that opportunity section, as you see, they highlight the need or problem. And again, this really should be specific to the opportunity that you are interested in and targeting with your phase 1 or, partnership opportunities. There you also identify that target customer or end user. Keep in mind, this is going to change as you go through additional customer discovery or customer conversations. And then for that market opportunity, you could see, there are numbers included. There is information included there. You want to be pretty specific with kind of where you are envisioning. Keep in mind for that market opportunity, you don't want to, say we're going to capture 100% of the market within the first 5 years. That typically is not feasible and is going to raise questions in whoever is looking at your quad charts. So kind of, have realistic expectations, kind of mirror your opportunity or your market growth based on similar companies in a similar field. What did their first 10 years look like? And use that as kind of information to support what you are proposing. And so we've mentioned that these quad charts can be used for multiple different opportunities. So not just talking with federal agencies, but also connecting with potential partners. So we just wanted to provide another example of a quad chart that, isn't completely aligned with SBIR and TTR, but we'll include that in the slides that we send out at the end of this webinar. And briefly to wrap it up, we want to talk about how to effectively use these meetings and how to actually connect with federal agencies as well. Awesome. So there's multiple ways to connect with different agencies, technical points of contact, program managers. And I always say, there is this nuance within the program, and every agency, every opportunity, they call things differently, but all kind of the same process and, the same kind of conversation style. So if you are interested in SBIR and TTR, there's a lot of events, for example, like the virtual road tour that is starting today, that allow and give folks opportunity to connect with to connect with program managers and to actually talk about the fit of their innovation with what the initiatives of that agencies are. So if you are going to an event, typically I recommend for folks to attend Tech Connect or Defense Connect. They hold those twice a year up in Washington, D.C. They have an SBIR CTR dedicated portion of the conference where you do have room and ability to meet with those program managers. Before you go into that conversation, make sure you have a quad chart. Make sure you have this piece of information to deliver to these program managers or technical points of contact. Folks that are involved in SBIR and STTR, they are familiar with the structure, and they are familiar with what to look for within that quad chart. Do an introduction and then share that information with them. And again, use it as a guide for conversations. Don't actually just read off of that quad chart. And that's why I always say, don't put too much text on there, because, human nature, we will want to read all of the text that is there. Use bullet points, make the information very concise, make it very direct to the agency or person that you're speaking with. If, for example, you're interested in a contracting agency, they're not always, representatives are not always available to chat about your fit within their agency. Typically, if you are looking at, let's say DoD, they have a pre-release period. And during that pre-release period, that is the time for you to take these quad chart, connect with the technical points of contact, make sure that quad chart is ready though. Don't wait until that pre-release period to create your quad chart. Make sure that you're working on it beforehand. But when that pre-release period does open, leverage that to lead your conversations with those technical points of contact. Something we always stress with our clients is, can you talk about your innovation in 2 sentences? And again, kind of what John mentioned earlier, this should be your version, or SBIR STTR's version of an elevator pitch. Can you talk about your innovation in 2 sentences? Can you connect to that agency that you're talking to and let them know, why you are aligned and why your technology or innovation is aligned with what they're looking for. And then make sure, as you are going to those conversations, it is a fact-finding or information gathering mission for you. You really shouldn't be going in there asking closed-ended questions. Use open-ended questions. Have those questions. Leave it open for that technical point of contact or that program manager to really let you know what are they looking for. Talk briefly about your scope, but then also allow room for them to let you know, is that scope aligned, or is that scope completely opposite of what they're looking for and what they're looking to fund with this opportunity or with opportunities that you identify. Okay, so let's say you've actually you're able to have a meeting with a program manager. Before you actually go into that meeting, and whenever I've spoken to federal agencies, when I was looking for funding for my own efforts, I would make sure I knew as much as I possibly can about opportunities that they're releasing. And, this month and the next few months, I would look at new initiatives that the agency is releasing. Have they released any news releases? Is there any new programs or new funding opportunities? Kind of prepare yourself, do your homework beforehand, and make sure that you know what they are looking for. But then also, based on information that is available, what else can you ask that program manager or technical point of contact to clear your direction up a little bit for you? You don't want to be pitching an idea to them that totally misaligns from what they're looking for in the next few years. And I always stress, the next 5 to 10 years, because the SBIR STTR program takes, going through the gated process takes a few years to get through it. And, they're typically not looking at right now. They're looking at kind of 2 to 3 years into the future. Be prepared, like we've mentioned before, have a list of bullets and questions that you want answered. Really be the guide of that conversation. You ask those questions, but you sit back and you hear from those program managers and technical points of contact on what they're looking for and what they're looking to fund. And then use these meetings to really find out where their interests lie, especially after reviewing your quad chart. Pitch them your scope of work, but then also be very receptive, be humble as you are hearing from these points of contact, technical points of contact and program managers. Many times we think that our idea is the best idea, and it could be a really great approach, but you really want to make sure that your idea and your approach align with what the agencies are looking for. And then as you are writing your quad charts, you're not alone. So New Mexico Fast can support you as you are creating that quad chart. We can help with review, we can help with guidance. But in addition to New Mexico, there are multiple FAST sites across the country. There is usually one per state. Almost all states at this point and territories have one. There's a few outliers, but leverage those resources within your states to move yourself forward and to make yourself more competitive within the SBIR and STTR programs. So I wanted to briefly chat about services that we have here at New Mexico Fast. So we provide personalized support for all of our clients. Really doesn't matter what our client is focused on. We have a whole team with different areas of expertise to help you move forward and through the SBIR and STTR world. So we help with proposal development. We don't put words on paper, but we help kind of guide ideas and let you know that if something is completely misaligned, we'll help you align it to agencies that might be a good match. We have microgrants that we utilize to help send folks to actual conferences so you can have these meetings with program managers and technical points of contact. We hold workshops and different webinars and engagement activities throughout our state, but many times collaborate with other FAST locations and states in order to provide a really robust system of support. We know that folks may not always be available to be part of webinars when they are live, so all of our tools and resources are also available on our websites. And we try to have all of our resources on a virtual option as well, knowing that time constraints do exist for folks as they are in the world of entrepreneurship. We have a monthly newsletter that highlights what all the happenings within the SBIR and STTR ecosystem, and then have agency blasts whenever there are new solicitations that pop up or new requirements or changes to the requirements. And then we hold multi-week accelerators. Some accelerators are focused on SBIR 101, getting you kind of introduced to the program, while other accelerators are more specific. So for example, right now we have a 12-week intensive accelerator focused on the DOE phase 1 opportunity, where we help folks kind of navigate all of the elements of that proposal package. We provide those do's and don'ts, and then we provide support with review at each step. And all of our resources, again, as I mentioned, we do have, those live accelerators. We do also have self-paced accelerators on our website for all of the agencies participating in SBIR, STTR. We are also continuously developing new ones, really depending on agency needs and what we identify as needs within our clients. And then we hold an annual SBIR, STTR Innovation Summit, typically in December. Where we have different agency representatives, support organizations come and chat to clients from across the country about what is needed as you are exploring and navigating the SBIR and STTR ecosystem. And we try to provide the support for that as you're traveling through it. So thank you for joining us. Here's our contact information. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. If you are in New Mexico and are looking for SBIR and STTR support, please feel free to jump to our website and fill out an intake form. We're more than happy to connect with you. In about 10 minutes, the virtual SBA Road Tour is starting. They have a great program full of great speakers, and then they'll also have opportunities for folks to meet one-on-one with different agencies. So we really recommend for folks to leverage that opportunity. We did drop a quad chart template here in the chat. You feel free to use that. There is little variations of it, depending on who you ask. But all agencies are familiar with this template that we're sharing with you. So take some time to fill it out. If you need some review or need some support, feel free to email it over to us. We're more than happy to help you. And if there's any questions, we can take a few here now. I see a comment in the chat about the importance of having a strong quad chart, which is really true. You want to make sure that your ideas are concise, that they're clear, that somebody that is outside of your team can actually look at that quad chart, do a peek at it really quick. Also knowing that those folks may be looking at 20 to 30 quad charts per session. Really making sure that yours stands out, yours is really concise and delivers and requests all of the necessary and important information. Awesome, folks. But thank you so much for joining us today. We will be sharing this recording here in the next few hours, as well as the templates and then the slides as well. And again, if you have any questions, John and I will both be on CC'd on the email, and we're more than happy to help you through it. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.